Hello. Welcome to our mini workshop on understanding conflict. This is a common trap we see writers fall into, maybe thinking that conflict equals fighting or shouting or explosions. But narrative conflict is so much more sophisticated than simply combat. At its core, and conflict is the gap between what a character wants and the obstacles preventing them from getting it. So let's talk about conflict today. My name is Bekah Brinkmeier, and I am thrilled to have you here for our World Storytelling Day celebration. This session is powered by AutoCrit, and our goal today is to kind of better understand how conflict works in our novels. One of the most common questions in craft is what is the actual difference between conflict and tension? So I want you to think of tension as the anticipation of something, right? It's all of the smoke where you're not really sure what's happening yet, but the conflict itself, that is going to be the fire. So, tension is keeping the reader on edge, but conflict is the actual friction between what a character wants and the obstacles in their way. You do need both in order to keep a reader engaged for hundreds of pages. So, how do we do that? Effective stories do not use just one type of conflict. We have inner conflict, which is the character versus themselves. We have personal conflict, which is the character versus others. And then we have extrapersonal conflict, which is the character versus the world or fate. A story that's kind of on the weaker side is only going to focus on perhaps the outside world. But a deep story with lots and lots of complexity is going to force the external conflict to trigger an internal crisis. So, a tip here is that you are going to want to layer these different kinds of friction. You want all three. Okay, so when we're talking about internal conflict, we are talking about want versus need. So, internal conflict usually stems from the clash between the character's want, which is their conscious goal, and their need, which is their unconscious kind of emotional requirement. So, they could want the gold, right? Maybe they're on a quest and they want the gold, but what they need is courage in order to go get the gold. So conflict is going to arise when the only way to get what they want is to face what they need, right? I want the gold, but I am not brave enough to go get it. In order to get it, I must become brave. I must find courage. So, if your protagonist gets what they want without having to change anything about who they are, then that conflict wasn't deep enough. If they don't have an internal struggle, like if your character has no internal struggle at all, the reader is going to feel more like a spectator rather than an empathetic participant. So you want your reader to feel really immersed in your world. So we want them to relate to your characters. Next, we have external conflict, and I like to describe this as the what, right? It represents the physical or societal obstacles standing in the protagonist's way. It can take many forms. Like it could be a literal ticking clock. Maybe they have to defuse the bomb before everything blows up. Maybe there is a tornado coming and that's going to be a form of external conflict. Maybe it's the villain, maybe it's the crushing weight of society's expectations. Whatever it is, this layer of conflict provides the visible stakes that the audience can track. So, when you are building this, you want to make your external obstacles very specific. Instead of just being like, they looked outside the window and the weather is bad, make it a blizzard. Make sure that the roads are closed. It's too icy. There was a avalanche or something like that. That specificity is going to be the thing that prevents the hero from, I don't know, reaching the hospital in time. You see where I'm going with this? Specifics are everything. Now we want to maintain what we call the friction of progress, and this should use the no and or yes but rule. So every single time your character tries to solve a problem, I want you to frustrate the heck out of them. I want the results of them trying to solve that problem to lead to more conflict rather than a clean resolution. They do not get to solve all of their problems cleanly right away. If they succeed in solving the problem, it should be a yes. But now this new problem has arisen, excuse me. This ensures that every step forward increases the complexity of your story. Now, I do want to put a little writer beware out here. You need to avoid the traps of static and jumping conflict. Static conflict is what happens when your characters are constantly arguing about the same issue chapter after chapter and it never changes. They were fighting about who has to do the dishes in chapter 2, in chapter 8, in chapter 10, in chapter 15, in chapter 20. At that point, if your reader is still with you, they're like, use paper plates. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are we still arguing about doing the freaking dishes? So you're going to want to be aware of that repetition. Remember that they need to show change or growth. Now, jumping conflict, on the other hand, escalates way too quickly. It's going to skip over those logical emotional steps, like a character going from 0 to 100 with zero provocation. You want to aim for escalating conflict that makes sense. If you have a person who is driving in their car and all of a sudden someone cuts them off. Now, this person has never, like, this character has never shown that they are explosive or prone to any of the, violence or anything, but they get cut off in their normal little driving scene. And instead, they decide to turn their truck into like a battering ram. It's full blown road rage, like a la video game. It is Grand Theft Auto. We are crashing, we are swerving around. That conflict feels uncomfortable, right? We were driving Miss Daisy and now we are crashing into stuff filled with like rage and all kinds of stuff. So we want to make sure that we are being careful with how we approach this conflict, and so escalate with the logical steps. Next, I want to talk about conflict as a character revelation. So, conflict is the ultimate show versus tell tool. It strips away a character's masks and forces them to show their true colors under pressure. We don't know. We don't truly know at all who a character is when things are going well, right? We only know who they are when they are forced to make a difficult choice between two undesirable outcomes. So use conflict as a way to show who your character is. Now, a note here in the first act, so you are looking at conflict as the kind of primary disruption to your status quo. In your inciting incident, that is essentially the first major conflict your hero cannot ignore. It is the moment where the ordinary world becomes unsustainable for your character. The hero is then forced to acknowledge that they must act or lose everything. Here, if you're using this early conflict method, you need it to be able to reveal character. So how a person, reacts to a flat tire tells the reader more about them than 10 pages of description. Are they going to be mildly inconvenienced or are they going to be in incandescent rage? What is Either of those options are going to tell you a lot about that character. In Act 2, we are looking at how the conflict is evolving and escalating. It is not enough to just keep repeating the same hurdles. Obstacles need to become more personal, and the consequences of failure must become more dire. If there are not consequences and it's not personal, why do we care? Why would you read a book where it's just someone going through minor inconveniences that don't affect their life really day after day? if I want to escape into that, that could be my actual life, right? We need to look at how our obstacles are growing through, they're escalating, they're evolving. So, this is where our hero is being tested repeatedly. Their old ways of solving problems are proven insufficient. This is another place where you're using that no and or yes but technique. Does the hero succeed in finding the map? Yes. However, it is written in Greek. Our hero does not speak Greek. Does the hero escape the room? No. And the walls are starting to close in and things are looking a bit dire. You see? Next, we want to talk about midpoint conflict because this represents the point of no return. And at this stage, the conflict often shifts from being purely physical to deeply emotional. This is the pivot where the protagonist stops merely trying to survive the conflict and decides to proactively resolve it, often because the stakes have become too personal to walk away from. Here, I want you to use the midpoint to reveal that new truth that makes this conflict personal. The hero perhaps discovers that the villain who has been sabotaging this business, making his life terrible, they know them. It's their brother. That's pretty personal, right? That conflict has doubled in weight now. Now it's not just like some random stranger committing corporate espionage. No, it's your little brother. Like, that's a problem. So we want to make sure that we are making that conflict personal. Now, as we eventually get to the resolution of our conflict, that final collision, in order for our story to be satisfying, the internal struggle needs to be resolved before the external battle can be won. Your hero cannot defeat the villain until they have overcome their own primary fear or flaw. The external victory is merely a reflection of the internal growth. So here we want to look at the resolution of the conflict, and it needs to feel inevitable but not predictable. It should be the only possible outcome based on the growth the character achieved in Act 2. This is really important because there is always a price. Conflict that is resolved too easily or the will leave your ending feeling very unsatisfying to the reader. The hero has to sacrifice something. Maybe it's their safety net, maybe it's their long held beliefs or a physical advantage. I don't know. Could be whatever it is in order to achieve this resolution. That sacrifice is what creates our emotional impact for our readers. It's really important. So, as we get to the end here, if you are worried that your scene is feeling flat, remember that conflict is often found in the subtext. These are the things that characters don't say or the actions they are forced to take against their will. If everyone is being too nice or agreeing with each other, you are likely missing an opportunity for some meaningful friction. I want you to look through your manuscript for the easy scenes. If a character needs information and they just look it up on Google, you've definitely missed an opportunity for conflict, right? And also, why are we going through multiple Google searches? We need to keep those scenes crispy. We want to make them go to it. Maybe they have to go to their villain. Maybe it's a school-based one. They have to go talk to their bully to get this information. Maybe they have to go make a bargain with the fae that lives in the well down the street. I You're gonna have to want that information real. Um, it's gonna be really vital information in order to make a deal with the fae, right? So you want to give them an opportunity for conflict. Now, my final piece of advice for this little mini workshop, and I know that these are under 20 minutes long, so um, this is kind of more of an overview, but my advice is don't be afraid to be mean to your characters. We all love our heroes, but their growth is only possible through struggle. Pushing them to their limits is the greatest gift you can give your story. Now it is time to go forth and create some drama in your drafts. If this was useful, I ask that you please subscribe because I do these mini workshops semi-regularly. Please share this with a writer who needs it today because it is World Storytelling Day and stories deserve to be told well. Don't forget to join in all the festivities we have today. Check the playlist here on YouTube or go to autocrit.com and World Storytelling Day link is in the caption. We have a huge schedule of events and you can sign up to be notified. It is all free. Thank you so much for joining me for this series. If you are ready to take the next step in your writing journey, I highly encourage you to check out the full range of courses available at AutoCrit. The address is www.autocrit.com/courses. And to close us out, again, my name is Bekah Brinkmeier, and I have had so much fun doing this series. There'll be a few more, and happy writing and happy World Storytelling Day. See you at the next one.